See, Dr. Garg has mentioned something about standards. See, if we broadly see, standards are of four categories. One is compatibility and interface. So where this telecommunication industry is heavily dependent on the interoperability, where interface is essential ingredient of those kind of standards. So another standards is minimum quality standards. Minimum quality standards like you have ISI or various other standards where you have to have a minimum standard and the safety and other issues need to be handled. So where ICT may not play a major role, this area of technology may not have a major thing in that. And then third type of standards are variety reduction. And all of you must be remembering earlier days, अरे आपके नोकिया की पतली पिन वाला चार्जर है क्या? और वो वाला चार्जर है, C port है. Now you are C port है. So this is a variety reduction. So you have to have a standards on different equipments where you don't have much of variety, and then again it facilitates interoperability and the interface between different devices. And then fourth kind of standards are information, and that happens in the other kind of products, like if you are Ayurvedic products, you give information, standard information about what are the ingredients in that. So each one of standard will have different economic advantage and different problem. But the basic function of these standards, if we would like to say, are three basic functions. First function of having standards is incentivizing innovators through a consortia mode or some well-defined mechanism. And second function of these standards would be diffusion of technology. See, if any technology becomes a standard, that widespread diffusion of that particular technology can be adopted. Beside this, there's a coordination of different technologies. So nowadays, if we say technology is one or one or two technologies will result into one device, it will not be the case. If we see the mobile handset, it is covered over 2.5 lakhs patent claims. One mobile phone maybe around 8,000 patents and 2.5 lakhs. So there is a requirement of coordination if we want to take advantage of these technologies. So in India we have standard setting or standard administering organized BIS, which does not need in this. I think Department of Telecommunication have established a standard setting organization in the area of 15 standards have been notified till date in the area of information technology. And then there are some other agencies who are coming together. So these standard settings systems would be voluntary, mandatory, the government bodies. So there are different kind of standard setting organizations and people pooling their technologies to one platform and making those standards, making those technological standards. And if we want to name few standards, you have Bluetooth standards, USB standards, which you are using in a day-to-day life, 3G, 4G, 5G, and in India we were working on a wisdom, so the parallel to 5G, those standards. So we are supposed to pooling technologies, or people with technology will come together and try to make a standard of a product, and then they may come with a patent, or after setting a standard, they will develop those technology and file a patent. So it happens both ways. So at which stage you intervene into the whole process of standard setting, and there are distinct advantages of being a part of this at a different level. Well, how do you deal these things? So one model is a friend model, fairly reasonable and non-discriminatory. So why these things have come into picture? Because if 10 people come together, make a standard, and see, this technology has to go to everybody, reach masses. So all of them have to use. How it reach and what terms it should reach. Because if you make a standard, you will be blocking the technological development in other sense. So everybody should have access to that. So in what terms and condition you should have access? There are different theories on this. So I think I'll not go into those theories. I'll keep my research. Again, add further on if discussion.
So what I will request is to see that there are standards which for which patents are applied for or patent, and how does the European Patent Office looks at patent applications which are related to standards first.
Well, as said,
And secondly, if there are patents that are litigated in respect to standards, does EPO play any role in actually administering or regulating such litigations?
as mentioned, we don't always know that it is about standard unless they say it themselves. The standard can be in different states. 4G is now known, for example. 4G, we know what it is, and any inventions on 4G will normally say they are 4G, and will try and build on that and try to take part of the standard so that they get a little piece of the money each time. In order to be able to do to analyze these type of things, we have fully integrated our documentation. We have access to 2.6 million standards documents, and we are in fact members of a couple of standard committees, HC, IEEE, etc., where we are as observers, but we can participate to these meetings of these organizations, which are then discussing new standards. We even have access to the non-public publications that they have. Of course, we cannot cite them, but it allows our examiners to interpret the public ones to see how it, as you can see sometimes in in examination filings, that you need to see the whole story to see what the end is. That's why we are there. And we cited more and more, like last year we cited 2.7 million, that's the amount of tools that we have, but we cited 18,000 standards in areas. It depends on the technical area. Where there is a lot is the wireless, 4G, and also in the digital coding, the MPEG, that kind of stuff. It's a lot. If it's like in the 5G, we can smell and feel that it's going there, but we don't know where they are going. And by talking to major applicants, I have some ideas of the games that they're playing, but I'm sure we'll hear some more of that. It's, you try to get, on the one hand, a fast patent, to have something in there, to have your foot in the standard, but on the other hand, you want maybe the same or with another amount of files to be slow, so that you can later tune again your file and the end of the procedure to better cover the coverage of the standard. So you have these different steps. It depends where you are. We try to, as said, we have access to all these standards that are known already, all the ones in the working groups. IEEE has lots of working groups for all the separate standards. We follow that up. We have contacts with them, so we get all these data available. So if you file applications in that area, we will try and cover as much as possible that as prior.
First was with respect to how does the EPO handle the standard?
Okay, the litigation. Okay, litigation, well, it's not really litigation, it's only opposition. We only have those 9 months after granting that you can oppose, and there are today still oppositions and in boards of appeal on oppositions by Rambus on USP. It's still ongoing. I think it's already 20 years now, but as you can see, yes, it can happen. But in most cases, the standards will be defined afterwards, after the grant, and then it's up to the national courts to decide once the EP.
One more issue that is there is that to maintain the monopolistic right on patents related to standards, you tend to file patents of addition or incremental patents. So how is such scenarios exist in Europe and EU, and how do you actually handle it?
Well, we handle them as any other application, in a certain sense. look what the prior art is, and in most cases that would then be some of the standards, and we see what their invention is, and does it solve a technical problem, yes or no? Sorry, but the story is always the same. And we simply apply the problem-solution approach. Is it novel? First of all, novelty, of course. If it's exactly the same, forget it. But if there is a small difference, is it worthwhile looking as well, knowing and the standards and the rest of the patents, is it worthwhile patenting or not? That's the way we try to go.
But all expire on the same day. Any combination can expire on the same day.
Of course.
Actually, there is no other period, so to speak, even if there are patent
Evergreening is always a misnomer.
No, it's up to 20 years. It's always the
Right
lifetime from the first
filing.
filing. You can file as many divisions as you want. It's now again possible in Europe after a little hiccup that we had. But in the end, it's only 20 years. And I'm talking now for the this is one of those cases where it has still to be decided now, but will only have retroactive effects for the 20 years. Even if it's only decided after 24 years, it will depend on payments between these companies after so many years.
So Sheetal, what is the type of heat that a technology company like yours is facing in the Indian manufacturing ecosystem in regard to standardization?
I think that's a wonderful question, but first let me applaud you, sir, because whatever I have to say about standards, you've already said that. So he has made my life very, very tough, and this shows me a smile on all of your face, and I want this to be continued till the time we are here, and even after that. Okay, so there is, I think, can I take a liberty to say a few words before I get on to your question? So I just want all of you to first feel pain about the standards and what standards actually mean. Let me just rewind your memories back. But all of you are so young here, maybe, our Dadajis and Dadajis back in 1970s and 80s, what used to be the condition of mobile telephony. It used to be 1 out of 280 people would just have a telephone connection. And it would take no less than 10 years to receive one phone line connection. And even after 10 years, your phone will not work. So I happened to read a book of Mr. Sam Pitroda, his biography, and he writes that people used to carry processions of dead phone lines on the stretcher and say, it's bad and our phone lines don't work, because there were no standards followed in India. And there in 1984, later part of 1984, we had GSM. We started to follow standards, and now you see the condition. I mean, 1 out of 280 back then, and today 1 billion telephone connections we have. Even before you are filling your papers and you're just about to put the SIM there, your phone is active. So this is the value that standards has given to all of us. Does it make you feel good about it? Okay. Now, so standards have done a great job for all of us, especially for our country like India. So 1 billion phone connections. And 1,000 broadband connections leads to 80 jobs. As per National Telecom Policy, so we are envisaging 600 million broadband connections, meaning 48 million new jobs just by 2020. We are just standing there, it's a foreseeable future. So that's the value that standards have given to us. More empowerment. Second largest, India has become in the world in terms of mobile telephony. In terms of infrastructure, we are 4th largest in the world. Could we ever see this? I mean, somebody would just have put us in asylum if we would have stated back in 1984 we'll have 1 billion connections, right? So that's the value that standards have given. Now, back to sir's question on what issues do we really face in India? Well, one bigger issue is the unwilling licensees. And that's, I think, a mindset, or it's somewhere, grown inside our DNA. We don't know. Even if it is a movie, a movie in India is getting, we can see it for free in TV after 3 months of the release, but still we don't want to go to the movie or want to, bring down the pirated movies. Same is the case that we are facing, I mean, not me, but companies facing in India, or the unwilling licensees. People just don't wish to pay. One bigger issue that we have seen over a period of time is that when you look at ICT is something where the shelf life of your technology is going very, very low. I mean, you have a phone today, it's 4G, then by 2020 you'll have 5G. It took us from 2G to 3G, it took us 10 years, from 3G to 4G took us less than 8 years, from 3G to 4G, 4G to 5G, even less than years. That means there is a huge investment in the R&D. That's not stopping, by the way. More R&D scientists, more technological developments for all of us to use. But what is the downside is that the return or the return on investment, the time period is going less for us. It's growing very, very less. 4 to 5 years in patent grant, examination, rigorous examination, good, let's do that. 4 to 5 years in just convincing the unwilling licensee to please come across the table, please sit with us, discuss. They don't come. That means your 8 years are already gone. And after that, we also have, some policy issues like CRI guidelines, and that makes our judge feel really confused and perturbed. Oh my God, there are CRI guidelines. That means your patents are anyway not valid. What do you do? So of course, a lot of tough situation, but we have best of the policy makers here, and we've got a lot of positivity around us, and we are hopeful something great will be done. Just my last word on conclusion of what Sir said, so that you feel more pain for the technology, is that for the mobile industry, by 2020, $4 trillion US it's going to invest. 21% of the total turnover of the sector goes into R&D, which is much more than even your pharmaceutical, I mean, when I was a scientist myself, we used to synthesize 10,000 compounds. Only one would go to a clinical trial. Mujhe lagta tha pharma is the only, toughest subject to handle. But after, coming in Ericsson, I've known, no, it is ICT. It is really ICT. 21% of your turnover goes into that. And so many scientists working day and night, but they're, things getting infringed, it's a pain. Shelf life is going low, patent grant takes time, unwilling licensee, so I think that's the last word on your question, sir.
So on the flip side of it is that I agree with Sheetal and all others that mobile is one of the fastest growing technology areas of communication technologies. But there's a bigger revolution that has taken place in our generation, and that is the internet. And internet is based upon open standards and open innovation models. And I think, so my question, quick last answer from each of the panelists is open innovation or open standards can be the next wave in which the technology revolution can take place, and we have far more innovations making our life better,
I think that what we just heard, the amount of money that's involved for R&D is so big that there is a need of return of investment by these companies. I've been talking to regularly now to people in the 5G world. Every one of them, all the big players, they are recruiting hundreds and hundreds of examiners, R&D people. They are staffing their patent attorneys. They are recruiting lots and lots, and they want some return. So I'm afraid that is a bit utopy to think that we can go to open standards in that area. However, what we also see is that probably the current model will no longer be able to be used. Because if we're talking 5G, if we're talking Internet of Things, your car alone will already have 50 to 100 of those devices that's talking. And you cannot have licensing fees paid for each one of those elements in there. So that's why you read and you hear that all these companies, the car manufacturers, are now talking already now with the big distribution companies, the Ericssons, etc., to try and come to some agreement beforehand to see how they can come to a new model. The standard will be there, but the model might be different, with different forms of license payments, fee payment, this type of things.
So I think to the best of my knowledge, although I'm quite naive in this area of standardization, having spent 1 year in Ericsson, but all I know is that standards are not proprietary. Standards is a specification, it's a guideline which is available for everyone to see. And that has been the primary reason that Chinese or Indian handset manufacturers have been able to read the specification, smart enough, put it in the cell phone, create a chipset, and your handset is working. So standard per se is anyway open. However, the solutions that help these standards to work may be open for people to use free, or they may be proprietary in the form of a patent. And that's purely a business decision decision or a market decision depending on whether and how much you have invested in your R&D. If there is no return on investment, I dare that India will be back in the Stone Age where we will have no standards to follow. Our devices will not work. Do we want to go in that direction? And I think last word on that is that open solutions and proprietary solutions have always coexisted. It's not that if you have only open, let's not have a patent. If we have patent, we will never have a open thing. Both have coexisted. We have Linux, which is completely free. We have Windows operating system, which is completely proprietary. Both have coexisted. I think it's purely a market, it's purely a R&D, it's purely even a mindset of ours, which will decide where and which direction do we go to. At the end, I think IPR needs to be respected, and it's an image that we showcase to the outside world as to where and which direction we want to lead. Is it maybe or both?
Okay, I think Sita has raised a point that Microsoft, Windows and Linux has coexisted, and then I think there's a threat also that both are going to extinct very soon due to a variety of reasons. So there is no guarantee that if you are actually open standard system or the protected system, it will actually sustain. So both are very case-to-case basis need to be seen, because nothing would give you a guarantee that the IP protection would provide you sustainability, or the open or a free thing would provide you sustainability. But I would like to invoke here the famous tragedy of commons, or a tragedy of ND commons. See, if you have so many gatekeepers or so many patent holders around one standards, then actually it would be very difficult for practitioners to approach everybody and then take license up to the standards. And if so there's you have to have a model of patent pool, but all patents are not there in one pool in all the cases. So people are actually who are holding the standard essential patent, they are also not together to take and provide one-stop services to the users of a standard essential patent. And if there is an entirely open standard, and everything is open, so as a very famous, there's a tragedy of commons, and the example would be water. Groundwater in this country, there is no protection to that, so everybody is taking out, and then the water table gone down. So if no protection is provided to those technology solutions, then the solutions will dry up after some time. So there has to be balance between both kind of thing, who are ready to provide you these solutions on those platforms in the open innovation model, and who wants to work in the protected environment. So there has to be balance actually always.
Yeah, I will comment on this open innovation. Actually, regarding this Microsoft and this thing, Unix model that you were talking about, I believe the open innovations, they iron out the glitches very easily. I mean, for example, Windows system, we always experience how many times it hangs, even though they release patches every now and then. But Unix system, it is so stable, and so that's my point. I mean, open innovation always irons out the glitches faster than proprietary things.
Yes, but they have a completely different economical model as well. They don't earn the money by the license, they earn the money by adapting the software. It's another economical model, and both can coexist.
Android, for example, is free, right? Android, Samsung, every cell phone has an Android. It's free, by the way, by Google. Do you think that they would have done charity to us? No, because a lot they are earning through the advertisement fee. All of us are using Google search engine. So nothing comes to free, my dear. There is no free lunches. There is some or the other, as he rightly mentioned, is an economic angle, a business angle that we need to first see to really identify what finally is the outcome. Anybody who's investing
there is a balance between the economy is moving towards services rather than the goods. So what your point is that people are earning out of services rather than selling technologies or goods. So there needs to be a balance, as many of the speakers and you have also rightly said. And Linux has been one example by which licensing fees of the proprietary players. So what I agree with you all that we should have a balance. There are business models, as you know rightly said, where open innovation has business models around it, and it's true that no, you are not going in for a free lunch, and no one wants it. But there has to be a balance. If we want this country actually to take advantage of the digital world or the digital economy as such, where not only us using smartphones, but our farmers are able to have, so there has to be a balance between the cost of technology or the cost of product, and at the same time reward the creator of those technologies in a rightful manner. So what that will be, I think none of us are the best experts. The judiciary is there, the competition commission is taking care of that, and we will very soon have a right balance created, and the only thing that I want is that manufacturing should go on.
Yeah.
I think I want to make a quick comment on this open source. See, you think that the open source is actually free of intellectual property rights. It's not. Actually, you have a GNU license, you have a Apache license. You have to sign, you have to agree to those licenses. And now what happens when you are processing your innovation through protected regime, you get money after you are protected and by use of those inventions. But if you contribute to open innovation, you are bound by those agreements, IPR agreements, that you cannot actually take advantage or cannot take any money out of those efforts you are putting. So here you have to pay for that, and here you have to lose for that. So that's a balance created by both the systems. So you pay. So the consideration is different. Here the consideration is money. In the open system, consideration is your hard labor. So which is not considered for any money.
If there are any other opinions, inputs, or queries by the speakers, please.
Sir, government plays a policy catalyst to channelize market forces. So how the world is being played out in the last 40 years is America went in for software patents and they became a software hub, and they made a huge economy out of that. Europe was largely rewarding engineering patents in that space. China on the other side was pumping in money and putting up manufacturing hubs on the other side, so they were not into patents earlier. Japan has also been very lenient in patenting, including business patents, and their economy evolved. India had no money and no patents. We ended up being a service economy. So if we have to earn forex, the policy approach has to drive this innovation into the country so that we can actually export these goods. So we need to take a very proactive stand in terms of digital. So the earlier world was a hard stone world. Then we came into the digital era, and now we're going to enter into a virtual era where everything will become virtual. The design will be virtual. You'll be making aeroplanes virtually, and even people will eventually start living in the next 10-15 years into the virtual world. So we need to accept that if you want to leave that space as a country, and every patent filed is actually humanity moving forward. Every invention which gets filed is where the humanity is moving forward. So whatever we incentivize as a policy actually will happen here in India. So in 2002, the word got out that software patents do not exist in India, and so therefore people never invented in this space. So it's actually the word which gets out of the ministry which shapes the country here. So our
that words are also, I agree with you that it's a policy advocacy that promotes things, but the words are also the good thing about India is that policy is also made through stakeholder consultation, and there is a wide range of consultation that happens here on each and every decision. My experience with the government has been that in the 16 years is that we might consider our lawmakers, we might have different opinions about our lawmakers, our policy makers, but end of the day what comes out is robust, actually reflects the opinion of the public as such and the ecosystem that we are living in. And I think a balance is made, and after that there is a judiciary which actually balances it out.
So the second part is actually once even we do get IPR here, the judiciary is so clogged that it's not even worth having a patent. Even parking those patents in India is very dangerous.
Enforcement has been an issue, patent systems or the IPR system. The new IPR policy has tried to address many of the issues, and I think we'll make a move forward. And like with the startup culture coming
Yes.
in such a big way, I think the things will iron out.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other point? So if there is no other point, I'll thank my fellow panelists for making this very lively discussion. And this is a discussion which actually ends up with no answers. So I once again thank you all, and